World War II was an unprecedented conflict, with levels of destruction and death never seen before. The powers that faced each other invested monstrous sums of money in technological innovations, since, on the battlefront, it was crucial to have the most efficient weaponry possible. Nazi Germany was one of the countries most obsessed with increasing the power of their arsenal, in such a way that they could not only terrorize their enemies, but also exterminate them. Today, in this new episode of Military History, we'll tell you everything about the deadliest weapons of Nazi soldiers. Are you ready? Let's begin. Number 6. The Kar 98K. One of the most famous weapons of the Wehrmacht was, without a doubt, the Karabiner 98 Kurs, the standard rifle of the German troops throughout the war. It worked with a bolt mechanism, which required the soldier to manually cock it after each shot. It weighed 4 kilos and had a length of 1,100 millimeters. With a telescopic sight, the shells could travel up to a kilometer away at a speed of 860 meters per second. The Kar 98K was designed to be a tough and effective weapon, and was ideal for German snipers who needed a reliable rifle to take out targets from afar. However, its main drawback was its slow reload speed and cadence, which made it a poor weapon when engaging an enemy wielding a machine gun. The Kar 98 was manufactured until the end of the war, and it is estimated that the Nazi military industry produced more than 14 million units. At the end of the war, a large part of these rifles were captured by the Soviet Union, which distributed them among its troops and used them in other wars. Number 5. The Panzerfost. When Nazi infantry saw a tank approaching, it was essential that they have adequate weapons to destroy it. For this reason the Panzerfaust, which in German means armored fist, was developed. This was an anti-tank grenade launcher weighing 6 kilos and 1 meter long, whose shots had an effective range of 60 meters. The Panzerfaust was a shaped charge bomb launcher, which means that the explosive was arranged in a concave fashion. When detonated against its target, the grenade charge would shoot out in multiple directions, causing enormous damage and piercing the armor of the tanks. This weapon was designed to be quick to use, so once the shot was fired it had to be discarded, since it could not be reused. The effectiveness of the Panzerfaust was so great that it is estimated that in the Battle of Berlin in 1945, when the Third Reich was on the brink of the abyss, German troops managed to destroy 2,000 Soviet tanks using their grenade launchers. Number 4. The Flammenwerfer 35. One of the great fears of the soldiers of the Second War was to die engulfed in flames. The Flammenwerfer 35 was a one-man German flamethrower, used to clear buildings and trenches infested with enemies. The Allies nicknamed it the Skin Stealer, since once hit by it, they would receive, at the very least, intense burns and enormous tissue loss. The Flammenwerfer had a tank of almost 12 liters of incendiary mixture, composed from tar and gasoline. Upon triggering, the liquid was ignited with a hydrogen flame that created the fire, and could be used continuously for 10 seconds. The flare had a range of 30 meters away. The great disadvantage of this flamethrower was its enormous weight of 35 kilograms, which meant that not every soldier was in a position to maneuver with it. On the other hand, the users of the Flammenwerfer moved so slowly and clumsily that they were easy targets for snipers. In terms of effectiveness, this weapon could be better used in closed spaces, where enemies were grouped and locked in, unable to move freely. By 1941 this flamethrower was superseded by lighter models. Number 3. The MP40. Among their basic equipment, every German soldier had an MP40 submachine gun, and its popularity was such that today it is remembered as the most iconic weapon of the Third Reich. Its designer was the German businessman Heinrich Vollmer, whose goal was to provide Hitler's troops with an assault weapon. The submachine gun was ideal for paratroopers and armored personnel carriers in close combat situations. The MP40 was less effective when fighting in the open, as its accuracy became erratic. It weighed almost 5 kilos loaded, and had a length of 830 millimeters with the stock deployed. Its caliber was 9 millimeters, and its rate was 500 shots per minute, with projectiles that could reach a distance of 200 meters at 380 meters per second. Throughout the Second War, more than 1 million units of this submachine gun were produced, and although its manufacture stopped in 1945, its history did not end there. Surviving examples were sold and reused in other conflicts, such as the Vietnam War, and the Norwegian Army kept it as a standard weapon until the 1980s. Number 2, the Model 24 grenade. This explosive was the standard hand grenade for the Germans during both World Wars. While their American counterparts sought to damage their rivals with shrapnel, the Model 24s aimed to destroy the enemy with the power of the blast. It consisted of a hollow handle with a detonator and a bomb at one end. To activate the mechanism, it was enough to remove the cover of the base, which left a rope exposed. By pulling the rope, a steel rod was activated that ignited the detonator, in such a way that the explosion occurred after 5 seconds. This weapon was effective for clearing trenches, when there were many soldiers grouped in the same position. However, it was not capable of causing extensive damage to armored vehicles and fortifications. Interestingly, its peculiar cylindrical shape earned it the nickname wand grenade and potato masher. Number 1, the MG42. One of the most powerful weapons of the Nazis was the MG42 machine gun. Soldiers described the peculiar sound of its bursts as ripping cloth, and those who faced it nicknamed it the Reaper or Hitler's saw. The MG began to be manufactured in 1942, and around 400,000 units were produced. It had a weight of 11 kilos and a length of 1.22 meters. Its caliber was 7.92 millimeters, while the projectiles reached an impressive distance of 4,000 meters at 820 meters per second. With it, the Germans could fire up to 1,500 shots per minute, which made it one of the machine guns with the highest rate of fire at the time. Its power was so feared that the Allies created training movies for their men. In these documentaries, soldiers were warned of the hardship that awaited them with Hitler's saw, and were taught to resist the psychological impact caused by a machine gun that seemed to have unlimited projectiles. However, some historians have pointed out that the fame of the MG42 was exaggerated by the Third Reich. The disadvantage of this weapon was, paradoxically, its main advantage, since the rate of fire caused the barrel to overheat and melt. Also, unlike other British and Soviet machine gun models, it did not have cooling mechanisms to alleviate the high temperatures. Therefore, it was not surprising that the MG42 would fail on the battlefield. We have reached the end of the video, and we want to ask you, what do you think was the most lethal weapon of the Germans? Leave your answer in the comment box below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history.